everybody, and welcome to this year-end webinar of RailFreight.com and RailFreight CN. Yes, and we're now live from Rotterdam for this year-end webinar of RailFreight.com and RailFreight CN. And we have a full studio here in Rotterdam. We have Igor Tambaca from RailBridgeCargo, and you're from the Netherlands.
Yep.
Welcome. We have Shao from Tiedada. Your main office is in Gnedov.
Yep.
And you're also stationed in the Netherlands.
Yes.
All right. Welcome. And we have our colleague, Cheng van Zouw. You're our newest, latest editor of RailFreight CN.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm the new editor and journalist for the RailFreight CN.
Yes, thank you very much for being here. And we have two online guests, Aleksandrs, Gnedov, and we just debated a little bit where you are, but we found out you're in Riga, Latvia.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. In the snowy Latvia.
Yes. All right.
Just like backside of me.
And it's very dark right there. We see it.
Yeah, it's quite dark and snowy. It's already 4 o'clock, so we are one hour in front of you guys.
Okay. All right. Good to have you. And of course
Thank you very much.
And we have Conor Feighan closer to home. He is in Brussels.
Hello. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And you're representing ERFA, the European Rail Freight Association. So you're here to tell us everything about your European perspective.
Correct.
All right, we're here to look back at 2022, and this was by far a normal year. We have gone through a lot, I think, this is fair to say, and we have created 4 buzzwords that represent 2022. Now, for this year, that would be the biggest rail freight topics of 2022 should be. That would be the war in Ukraine, I think everybody agrees. Then lockdowns in China, energy prices, and construction works. So those are the 4 topics that got us concerned in 2022, and we're going to discuss them throughout this hour. Of course, the online audience is welcome to debate with us, to ask questions, to comment if you like. We are here looking at the chat, so if you have something to say, please do so. And we will finalize with a toast. So you can all get your whatever you like to drink in front of you for the final toast, and we'll do it all together. But let's first start, the war in Ukraine. I think it's fair to say that it has impacted rail freight a lot. Frank, I would like to start with you. Can you explain how it has impacted your business?
Yeah, I think firstly, the Russia and the Ukraine war, just like we drop an iceberg in chaotic volcanoes along France last year. So everything just quickly cooled down. So only by then we found the inventory storage is far too enough, and the CPI is soaring, and the consuming capabilities is insufficient, right? So all companies, like most of the companies, we suddenly get a half decreased on the volumes. So order is getting less.
Yeah.
So but we quickly find our balance by export to Russia. This is the market.
That is from China to Russia.
Yeah. But we think Europe, the business with Europe is quite important. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of sanctions, have you been impacted by sanctions?
Yeah, because many international, big clients, they follow up the policies, sanction policies, and they stop to cross Russia territories. Mm-hmm. That's affected greatly for the rail logistic industries.
Yeah, but was that because they didn't want to, or were there commodities that are actually sanctioned that you used to transport before?
Yeah, every possibility. They don't want, or they don't be allowed to. So
yeah, because when it just started, we really tried to study those sanctions, and we tried to find out what is possible, what is not. We first thought that Russian railways was sanctioned. Luckily, it was not. But which products that you transported on the train were actually sanctioned, Igor?
Actually, not a lot, because we transmitted a lot of industrial material in transit, but also foodstuff and medicines, and that was in transit, not sanctioned.
Yeah.
The problematic items were more into Russia, so from Europe into Russia or China into Russia, where we had extensive research on the actual HS codes and the sanctioned goods, which should not be imported into Russia. So that's where we focused on.
Yeah, and was it difficult to assess that?
Yeah, with the Dutch government, we assessed a lot of different products just to be sure that there's no dual usage or sanctioned. And especially after a few months, the Dutch government came with a list of sanctioned goods, sanctioned companies, which then eventually also helped us to have a better view of what is possible or not.
Yeah, you didn't need a sanction lawyer?
No.
No?
No,
All right.
not really.
Okay, that is good, because those can be quite
Yes.
costly.
Thank you.
And in terms of customer demand, you said it was decreased by half, maybe. Was that the same case for you?
Yeah, we started off in March athletically to stop the whole route for our company.
Yeah.
So we immediately switched to the middle corridor because we were operating the middle corridor just already before the war. So that was our solution to come into Europe. But eventually in May we opened it up again for the customers who had really problematic issues with their supply chain.
Can you explain what those issues were?
Yeah, because of the performance of sea and the problematic issues in the harbors for sea freight, they immediately came back to us and said, although we understand your ethics, please open up the route through Russia and Belarus.
And by sea, you mean Caspian Sea?
No, the sea freight route, so the normal sea freight route from Asia.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where we said, okay, we open up in May the Russian route again and Belarus to come into Europe because of the supply chain issues to cover our customers.
Yeah. And what was the public response? Because I understood in the beginning you took that decision by ethical reasons, basically. Yeah. Did you get confronted by people who were disagreeing with that?
Yeah, we got some remarks on that. Of course, in the beginning when we stopped the whole route, people got said that it was a good gesture and good company policy to do that. But although we said, if you look at the total overview of movements from China into Europe, it was inevitable to start up the route. And we had actual customers of ourselves saying, please open up the route again because we have real issues. So we could not just omit these customers again.
Yeah. Did you look at the middle corridor as an option?
Yes. Actually, after the war happened, we did two things. The first, we should be the first company to announce that we have the insurance included as a war risk. The second, we are finding the ways to the middle corridors. As a result, is not so nice. I think we had thought it's a good way, but this is not. Compared with the North Corridor, we spent 10 years to make everything very smoothly.
Yeah.
So I think it's a neat time to build up the cooperation along these ways. So middle corridor has a future, especially after this September. The Shanghai cooperation teams has a meeting. They announced to build the China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan road in next June, right? Next year, June of next year.
That will be the start of construction.
Yeah, so that will shorten at about 900 kilometers and at about 7 to 8 days. Yeah. But this is theoretically talking.
Yeah.
So we still need to smooth all the process.
Yeah.
I think within 2 years, this road maybe can be stable at around of 25 days. I personally
25 from China to?
From China to Romania and even to Duisburg.
25 days.
Yeah, I personally more interested on the solution from Poti or Batum to Kazakhstan, because so ocean rail
Mm-hmm.
can avoid the land congestion, I think, temporarily.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that Turkey, in Turkey part, everything will be smooth, more smooth than before. So gradually.
I also noticed that from the Chinese perspective, there is more interest in this route via Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan than in the middle corridor.
Yeah.
How could you explain this?
Yeah, because in the past, all the land transportation are mainly across Kazakhstan and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So to China government, we also want to find another option. We can call it the Plan B. So and especially to say economic need to Iran and Afghanistan to Turkish and the Middle East. So we are also take this regard this very important to us. Yeah. So this route is mainly take off the mine cereals, the products of intra-Asia back to China, and via Kashgar of Xinjiang, right? So that's the quickest way for us.
Yeah, and that will be then the construction starts in June, or is it completed in June?
Yeah, start from June, and
Yeah.
actually in the past 2 years, I keep visiting Xinjiang for many times. So the local government of Xinjiang told me that there's only 70 kilometers a gap between connecting.
And
so I think, we can expect this road with the support, fully supported by China government, Russia, and the Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan government. I think this project will be completed very quickly.
Yeah. Is this CKU railway line on your radar?
Yes, it's also one of the options which we should use in the future. But we're also looking at, of course, India, Pakistan into Tehran, Istanbul line, which is one of our major progresses, I think, in the coming years to connect India to Europe.
Yeah, and can you explain what that would mean to the Silk Road volumes?
I think India, as a country like China, has many products which are actually used also in Europe, and the other way around. We also have a lot of European exporters who would like to go to India shorter than the current 15 to 20 days by sea. So I think there's a real option to connect. The bigger issue is of course, the sanctions and the difficult discussions going through Iran.
Yeah.
But I think for the future, India is well placed to be sort of a second China when it comes to rail cargo into Europe and the other way around.
Yeah. Last week at the European Silk Road Summit, there was somebody saying that India has a lot of potential, Pakistan does, but they could never take the place of China, and that will always be the main, the pumping machine behind the Silk Road.
Of course.
Yeah.
But what you now see in the industry, and Apple is one of those companies which are moving to Vietnam and to India. So there is a signal where these companies are saying factories should be around Asia or Southeast Asia and India, just to foresee and to foresee the new supply chain into the future for these companies.
Yeah.
Not only China, but they're extending to other regions as well.
Yeah. Would you say that you as a logistics provider have become more flexible because you need to respond to all these constant changes, war, and all the things we're going to discuss later on?
Yeah. I think the world has become more dynamic in terms of supply chain. So as with the middle corridor, it was started with one train a week, and now we had suddenly a lot of trains coming in every week. But it's very dynamic. So from one day to another, you can have a war, and in 2 weeks' time, you have a middle corridor solution.
Yeah.
So I think in the supply chain, looking at all these items, you have to be very dynamic to support the customers in the supply chain also for the future. So it will never be quiet in the coming years. No.
And Aleksandr, you are in the container business. I am sure that you have noticed the volatile year. What has this meant for you? How has it impacted the business?
Yeah, well, basically all that gentleman was saying, we saw this as well. We saw the big demand of the containers in the new locations for us, like Vietnam, Indonesia. A lot of cargo went from Europe to India. So we have started also locations in India to off-hire the units. And yeah, so the everything was a little bit like changed quite a lot of the export and import the containers. We see like quite high demand in the area of the Central Asia, in Kazakhstan. So our office in Kazakhstan is very busy now, and yeah, lots of changes, and yeah, basically everything is around the Middle East corridor. Everything is very, very, very booming now.
Yeah.
As far as I can see.
I hear positive things from you.
Well, it's not like positive things. We're trying to implement the situation to our business model, which is not very easy as well. We're receiving lots of requests to evacuate the units from Russia currently, which is yeah, also very like quite difficult in current circumstances. But in another hand around, we have a big demand now in Kazakhstan. Our office in Almaty is quite busy. We see more containers are going to on-hire in Europe in our stocks. Baltics have now more demand because Ukraine and Russia is closed. And some of the containers which been delivered to the Ukraine and Russia currently are going back to Baltics to store here. So here our stocks improved a lot. Well, yeah, something like.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you had some difficulties in getting your containers back from Russia.
Lots of customers, lots of container owners in the beginning of the year was asking us to help with the evacuation of the units from Russia.
And
yes.
why was that a difficulty?
Yeah, well, obviously a lot of companies went off from Russian market, and they do not want to keep the units over there, like the major shipping lines did. And yeah, and we was helping to move them out. There still was some export to India, to China, and we was trying to help them out.
Yeah. And what did it do to your rates? Because in general, if you have to draw the bigger picture, did you see more or less customer demand?
That depends. Of course, the rates for the one-way movement and the one-way leasing car dropped a lot. But yeah, those 2 years, 2 years, pandemic years, was not really the years when we can tell that's normal. It wasn't normal situation with the rates for the sea freight and for the one-ways as well. Now it's going a bit more to normal. So one-way fees is not that high. The demand is still there. Additionally, we have opened a North America market. We lease quite a lot of units from China now to North America by sea. So
it's going up again. The demand is going up again.
Yeah, the demand is going up again, I think.
Yeah. Because I recently spoke to someone who described like a kind of like a wave, and then it was up, then it was down, and we're now slowly creeping up. Would that be the general trend of 2022?
Yeah, I think the people was afraid, to do something because there was a kind of a freeze because of the energy crisis are going in, and not much export, especially from Europe, it was seen by our side at least. So that's why for the some time, I think it was like from March till July, it was a bit quiet on the market. It feels like this.
Yeah.
But I see now that it's going up and up and again.
Yeah, that is good to hear. There was some more good news because we have here as the second 2020 word lockdowns in China, but there has been good news, Changfan.
Yes, definitely. I think starting from the last week, we see there's a strong relaxation from the COVID measurements and in China in general. I think that also brings about a lot of positive signals especially for our RailFreight industries as well, because the factory can also be operated smoothly and as well as the customs.
Yeah. Now, what does it mean, a lockdown in China? Let's say you're a rail worker, you're working in a logistics company. What does it mean to be in a lockdown?
I think especially the lockdown has very strong impact for the production company, the factory. So if you find out there's a COVID positive cases in the past, that the whole factory has to shut down that day, or at least the workers have to be quarantined inside the factory immediately.
Yeah. Did you experience such cases in your city in China?
Yeah, lockdown in China means, yeah, for example, if we all experienced Ningbo port was locked down, so it means that we found some workers affected by the COVID virus. So the whole area of the terminal will be closed, and nobody can be allowed to enter. So that caused the depot also stop working, as the trucking companies, the drivers will be locked down inside of the truck.
Yeah.
So I think this is
inside the truck.
Yeah,
as in
inside the truck.
The cabin.
Yeah. So,
without food, without drinks. Toilet?
Yeah. Somebody can deliver the food and the drinks to them.
Yeah.
It's a difficult time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if a terminal is in lockdown, can a train still arrive in the terminal?
Yeah, train. I think the train terminal will be affected by the lockdown. But the operation never stopped. So everything becomes slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think even Xinjiang and Xi'an, everything runs slowly than before.
Yeah.
So the lockdown will be take more restrictly controlled by to be controlled.
Yeah. Did you see the impact of the lockdowns in China?
Yeah, it was primarily the truck pickups we had for different regions. So some of these truckers could not cross regions, so we had to arrange other truckers to pick up in certain regions. And the other thing we had is that using more terminals in China, so we have 40 routes to Europe. It was easy for us to say if Chengdu is locked down, we have Xi'an or Zhengzhou to go into Europe. So we were quite flexible in that sense.
Yeah. And now that there's a relaxation, is that good news for you?
I think that's good also for the factories, because we had many customers closing down the factories, so they could not produce, where the pickup was actually extended by a month or 2 months. If it's now eased, I think the factories can produce again the amounts which they had covered before. So I think it's good for also the European customers.
Yeah, but that would also mean more congestion on the network again.
Yeah, but we haven't seen that for the last 6 months, honestly.
No. Because last year there was when there was the pandemic, still here, but when it was to a bigger extent, there was a lot of backlog, and then when it opened, it was congested because it all came at the same time. Is that something that is likely to happen this time as well?
Yeah, so people, since the policies, the new policy suddenly to be announced, so everything will be open.
Yeah.
No need to scan all the QR bars when you're entering the buildings, in restaurants. So release the too quickly, so people need time to accept. They are trying to adjust themselves, and everything will difficult because many people affected. But I think this is a decision made by the central government of China to in line with the world. So I think this is really a very good news. Yeah. After short chaos, I think it's a messed up for 2 or 3 months. Yeah. Everything will back to normal, just like Europe does. Yeah. So really a good news.
Yeah, and are you planning to visit China?
Yeah, after Chinese New Year, I will. I have some plannings here. So after that, of course, traveling freely. I think.
Yeah, and you are also visiting China.
I'm visiting China in less than 2 weeks, so that should be a good news for me.
Yeah, so you can now freely move in Shanghai.
I think now you still need to quarantine, but like the period is shorter than before.
Good news. All right.
Yeah.
Last week we had the European Silk Road Summit. We were all there. You were there. What did you think? Was it a good event?
I think the event in terms of the contents is very good. You also touched the geopolitical items, which I think it's good also to touch these in the middle corridor. And the location was wonderful. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
It was some kind of factory, an old steel factory, where you saw all these pipes and magical things, structures, and it was very interesting to see. Now, you talked about 30 rail professionals in China. You interviewed a lot of people, and you found out a lot of things. What was the main conclusion?
I think one of the major things a lot of Chinese partner has mentioned is the decreasing order from the Europe, and I think that's also something we also talked about today, comparing the perspective. But we also prepare a video for all of our audience to check about what those Chinese professionals think. I think our studio has also prepared for that. So should we have a look?
Yes.
Before the Ukraine war, 70% of our volume, of our business, 70% are going to Europe, from Europe to China, China to Europe. So 20% to Russia, 10% to CS countries. And now that's on the opposite side. So 70% goes to Russia, only 20% so it goes to Europe. So you can see that the change is huge, it's big.
欧洲的订单确实下滑的比较严重，跟去年甚至于前年相比，都是一个比较大幅度的下滑。我觉得主要的因素就是可能由于前面2年的疫情，导致了很多订单是预先下发的，然后实际的需求没有那么大，它需要一个消化过程。第二个呢，就是也有可能是因为整个欧洲的这个CPI 居高，然后失业率也居高，导致了大家可能不敢消费吧。
可能就是说它有一个季节性，但是对我们鱼腥欧而言的话，因为我们的服务比较稳定和固定化，所以说我们反而觉得这2个月，特别是这11、12月份的订单是上升的。
我们的同行有时候开玩笑说啊，说这个以前我们的仓库里面租不出去，那最近里面这个仓库里面呢，因为中欧班列拉的货物越来越多，所以仓库里面爆仓爆掉了，已经没有仓库再往下租出去了。所以这个一个情况里面也是应该在欧洲里面，对于中欧班列的我们的运输啊，也会产生一个很大的影响。货物太多了，那么有订单量明显的它就会减少了。那么如果说我们采用了这种跨境电商的销售模式，那也就是我们更多的能够减少过去我们在中欧贸易之间大家认为前置仓非常重要，不停的向欧洲的仓库出口货物，不管你卖出去没有卖出去，这样实际上对中欧班列的发展是产生了非常不好的一个影响。个人我是不看好这样的模式。
不仅仅是欧洲，全球范围内都在同时面对消费端疲弱和供应链失衡。当前全球局势不明朗，除了通货膨胀之外，还有包括疫情、战争、冲突各种不确定性，所以人们肯定都会削减开支，更加理性的消费。就中欧班列跨境铁路业务而言，我们观察了解到的是，目前去欧洲的货量相比去年同期略有下降，但其实各个地方政府今年的总体的铁路进出口运输任务还是超额完成。
Cheng Fan, very interesting, good interviews.
Yeah, thanks.
I would say, what do you think? Is this decreasing customer demand? Is it something you can reverse?
I think it's part of the economy at the moment and part of the recession we see in Europe. On the other hand, we also see a lot of full warehouses in Europe where the demand has dropped significantly, and that's why these warehouses completely filled up. So they don't need to order more out of Asia. And in that situation, we still need to await what the demand will be in the coming months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something our Chinese partner is also very eager to hear about the answer. But I'm also curious to hear some point of view from Frank. Like, what do you think is the major reason for this recession? The reason behind?
Yeah, I think the reasons will be very comprehensive. I think it's yeah, we're in the circling for the peak season and the slack season. So I think it's past like the from last year it's a great trend. People eager to export cargoes, to store cargoes. They think the peak season will come and always worry about the shortage of the inventories. So make everybody just rushing for their inventories. So means too many cargoes, and suddenly along with electronic energy's price increased. So people worry about their winter times, how to pass. So everything will slow down. And the war is continuing, so people worry about the future. How about the next year? So keep some cash on hand, and many kinds of the reasons. I think next year will be better. Yeah, we can hope.
Yeah.
I think I have a very relevant question from our audience. It's from Robert. Miguel will answer you later. So Robert has asked about, we see now quite huge differences in rates between sea and rail. And the question is that if we can consider it will be reduced further down on rail in the future, and more specifically, he's wondering if Chinese government will subsidize this even more for this product to be even more competitive. What do you think?
This is a good question. About the subsidies, I personally think Chinese government's commitment before will not be changed. President Xi promised to import many cargoes from Russia, so this will be not changed. So subsidies on the eastbound will be continued, I think. The export in order to encourage the local manufacturing factories, trading companies, they have the business to do. I think the government will consider a more aggressive ways to continue the subsidies, reasonable subsidies for a time being. I think in next year would be the government will do every methods to encourage the economic stable and increasing. I think we can optimize to think for the rail freights. We will continue to get the support from the platform companies, from the governments.
Yeah, that's good news, because I think now the sea rates are becoming very attractive, and it's considered as the main competition for rails. So continued support wouldn't be a luxury.
I think for the future you might see a different perspective for rail. So we see now coming a new express rail trains of 10, maybe 9 days. I think those prices will be higher than the average because it's close to air freight. Right. And I think you're going to get some economic rail still left, and that's going to be closer to sea freight.
So it's actually a more expensive service to have an express service?
Express, yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I understood that this express service right now only runs to Duisburg.
Correct.
And then it's prioritized over other services. Correct. Is it likely to happen in more places?
We hear that's going to happen for more terminals in the future. And I think it's also evident that it really helps the supply chain going faster, maybe closer to air freight. And I think reasonably enough, you can ask a better price for that from a rail perspective than an economy rail service. Yeah. So there's going to be a split between express and economy. That's my opinion, and more trains going more express.
Yeah, because there's actually, Miguel was asking about the transit times, if it will be over 25 days again if more volumes come on the rails.
For now, we don't see the need. Well, we don't see the transit times going up for the last 6 to 7 months. And I think if you commit to more of these express trains, you have more volumes going faster into Europe. and we hope for the new year they keep on going as we see today, because it's really fast at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's a good moment to have a short video, which shows our event, the European Silk Road Summit, and we use that moment to change our table a little bit. Aleksandr, I'm not sure if you're still there. He's not, because he told us he has to.
No,
you are.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me.
Thank you.
For the next meeting, and
Yes.
wishing you all the very best Christmas holidays.
Yes.
From me and the whole of my team.
Thank you very much for joining us. And for the audience, we're not leaving, just Aleksandr's leaving. So, all right, let's have a short look at the aftermovie of the European Silk Road Summit.
And the first thing we need to do to understand is we need to a little bit analyze what has been happening in the last 2 years with the demand on the rail products.
It's a GPS tracker and a smart sensor, and the superpower is that it's based on the newest mobile technology, which enables it to operate from one battery to many years without replacing or recharging the battery, and therefore it can be used on transportation logistics. For example, you can place it to your dry container and it tracks the container for many years without any maintenance.
Everything is working correctly with our technical guys. We could see the port debate on the screen, I think. Hi,
Ik kijk daar in de camera en daar.
So, all right. So the port debate in Rotterdam.
Yeah, let's.
So people, please wave back.
Say hi to Rotterdam. Thomas Kowitsky.
Thomas Kowitsky.
Congratulations.
DHL Global Forwarding. Thomas, get on stage.
Congratulations, Thomas.
It's really a big recognition, and I will try to do my best to be a good ambassador, to continue and to promote the service and rail. And I know there's a lot of people involved. This is the Silk Road Ambassador Award 2022, and I'm really humbled to receive this year. It is really something I'm very humble to receive for my team and as well for all involved. I mean, from the shippers' side as well from the suppliers' side, and yeah, I mean it's a big recognition, and I'm really humble to receive this.
Yes, we're all looking back at a very nice event, and of course we're going to repeat it. Now, as you see, we have a new face on the table. Marco, you're not just a new face on the table, but a new face for RailFreight.com.
Yes,
you
indeed.
have been with us since July. You started with a very interesting period, actually, and you've written a lot about the war and other things. Can you tell us a little bit more about the stories that people love to read in 2022?
Yeah, so well, of course, first of all, thank you for having me here. So yeah, we can see that the stories concerning the war, and especially how the railways influencing the role that the railway is having in the war, our readers quite like it. For example, here we can see an example of an article that I wrote about Russia and Belarus exchanging ammunition-loaded wagons. And for example, in this story, I think that people do appreciate reading these stories because it also gives a little overview of the war in general, not only of the role of railways, because according to where they ship ammunition and when, you can kind of make up a little idea of how the war is going.
Yeah, it's quite surprising that rail has such a huge role to play in the war.
Yeah, I do think it's quite an I don't know if underestimated, but undercovered for sure. You don't read a lot of news about how the trains are being used. Here we can see another article of this time it was vehicles, heavy infantry vehicles being shipped between Russia and Belarus.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just well, for me personally, it's a very interesting experience because I get to dive into different means that I would usually do for to look for stories. For example, we've been using Telegram. We've been digging into Telegram quite a bit. We've been digging into public institutions of the country surroundings, for instance, the Lithuanian border patrol, which again, for me, it's a very enriching experience because I can look for sources in different languages and yeah, different channels.
And what else did people like to read? War was definitely the #1 topic.
Yeah, I would say that's an understatement for this year. And but then yeah, we also have people do like to read about whatever is happening in Europe as well. For instance, accidents, when there's like big accidents, as we had the derailment in Carlisle in the UK recently, which our colleague Simon covered extensively. And yeah, people just like to watch, to read about these stories. But they also like to know about the first or the various different superlatives, like the fastest train or the longest connection. We have here an example of China presenting a freight train that could break the speed of 350 kilometers per hour. We have other example. We have the example here of the underwater project railway line that would connect China and the USA. And yeah, again, people just our readers just like to stay informed about this type of stories. We had the longest intermodal connection in Europe recently that was announced from south of Italy to Belgium. So yeah, all these different stories, let's say, which are with a different angle, our readers would like to read them.
Yeah. Now we want to know what we should cover in 2023. So I would like to ask everybody to leave some comments in the chat on topics that you want to hear more about next year. In the meantime, we're going back to the third word that we put in as the big RailFreight word of 2022, which was electricity prices, 2 words actually. And electricity prices were definitely a thing for railway companies because according to the SER, railway companies are actually the single largest consumer of electricity. They also mentioned that they pay around 200 euros per megawatt hour, and it is expected that this will be even 300 to 400 next year. So that is quite worrying. Conor, you have been quite busy when it comes to electricity prices. You've been lobbying a lot. Where are we now?
Yeah, thanks. So I think it's first good to just assess where we were a year ago. Around 1 year ago, the average price for electricity was around 50 euro per megawatt hour. We've seen this peak up to as high as 500 euro per megawatt hour. So in some cases, we've really seen up to a 1,000% increase. This has a disproportionate effect on rail freight because if you compare with other modes of transport, it's highly reliant on electricity. We have not seen the same level of rises in diesel prices. So there is a significant shift, a risk of modal shift. So what we have seen is member states taking different actions. We've had some member states that have done very little. We have some member states that have actually made the situation somewhat worse by offering support on diesel. And we have some member states that have actually been very proactive. For instance, Spain has capped traction prices to 2021 levels. Of course, Spain is a country that is not as exposed as some other countries were. But we are seeing progress over the time now as well. For instance, the Bundestag in Germany today voted on a ruling that will look to set the price for rail freight at 13 cents per kilowatt hour.
Is that a good price? Is that good?
Yeah, this would be a significant improvement of what current prices are. So as I said, this would be around 130 euro per megawatt hour. In Germany, this would be a significant reduction in what operators are currently looking at. And it also allows rail freight undertakings to also be able to plan for the future what will be the market price, because this is, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty when they're negotiating with customers on price right now.
Yeah.
So we feel that's quite a good progress. So that will still need to be approved by DG Competition in Brussels, but it's going in a good direction.
All right. And then how can you explain these different approaches from member states?
Money, that's the big one. What are the financial resources of member states? So who can actually afford to step into the market and provide this support? Because at the end of the day, the member states are having to step in to fill the gap that is the real cost of the electricity. So we have some member states that are in a better situation to actually do this than others. We also have some member states, the impact of the war in Ukraine has been much more significant on their energy grids. As I said, the example of Spain, they were not as reliant on energy from Russia in the first place, so they were not as heavily impacted as some countries further east into Europe.
Yeah, but RailFreight is usually international, so you can imagine a train running through 5 countries, one having high prices and one lower. I mean, what kind of effect does that have on the choice of routes for companies?
This is what we're going to see soon. And of course, if there is a big variation, countries will probably see higher levels of requests from railway undertakings. So we are yet to really see that play out. Of course, we need to keep in mind as well that rail freight undertakings do not just have the same flexibility as road to just change their path totally overnight. No. You're booked into long-term capacity planning, so it's not so easy to just shift.
Yeah, and is this price something that you see at the end as well? This price increase? Yeah.
Intra-European, yes, because some of the forwarders introduced the emergency or energy price surcharges, which were starting at 2 or 3%. Nowadays, it's 7 to 8. So you see gradually also intra-European rate increases. Yeah,
yeah, and those prices are passed on to the market and then always further passed on to the customer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there something you can do, Conor, from your perspective?
Well, now is the critical moment, because usually railway undertakings have the price of electricity secured for the next couple of months. But soon they're going to have to go onto the market to renegotiate those prices. And then that's when the real difficult discussion begins with the customer. So what we have been doing over the last months is applying this pressure on member states, especially, to take action. So we've seen the developments we've had in Germany, and we're hoping now that this will develop something of a domino effect, that once one country starts to act, we start to see that play out in other countries.
Yeah.
There is continued discussions with the European Commission on this topic, but we also need to recognize this is a topic that impacts every sector of society. So this is something that general industry will have a huge concern with as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that we have the one national practice now, and we see how we can continue that development in other countries.
Yeah, but if you read that railway companies are the single largest consumer of energy, you would think that is the highest on the priority of the European Commission.
Yeah, you would think. But again, there's a lot of sectors that have this position. And again, a lot of it comes down to the money. Who actually plugs this gap at the end? And in most cases, it seems to be the member states will have to step in. So it raises the question of resources again. And as we know, especially after COVID, with the current energy crisis in general, resources are something member states are struggling to deal with. But I think we're seeing good momentum now, and it's up to us now to ensure that momentum continues.
Yeah. All right. And then construction works, that was another major topic in 2022. For good or bad reasons, Marco?
It depends who you ask. I would answer that question, but some people are, I guess there's mostly two currents. One that thinks that it's better to carry out all the works right away, and whereas some other people might think that it's better to do it gradually. For instance, I would like to ask Conor if we've talked about the 10T revision of how Ukraine and Moldova will be added to the 10T network. So Conor, is there already a new 10T network? What are the most important changes that will happen now with the inclusion of Ukraine and Moldova?
So where we are now is the member state governments have agreed on a joint position. This was agreed at the beginning of December. We still have no agreement in the European Parliament. So we're still some way off having a revised 10T. So where we are now is we're waiting for Parliament to have a position, and then European Parliament and member states and the European Commission will enter negotiations. So it's still somewhat premature to say we have a new 10T. There's a lot yet that has to be negotiated. And what we are seeing is the European Parliament and the European Council have very different positions. So it's very uncertain what the final text we're actually going to have is going to be.
Perfect. And what would you think a realistic time frame would be for maybe for the European Parliament to deliberate?
Well, what we know is there's been a lot of amendments tabled in European Parliament. So it'd be ambitious, I think, to even say they will have a final position by the first quarter of next year. And Parliament is already recognizing that the negotiations are going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a big political dossier for 2023, but we feel we will have a new text by the end of the year at the latest.
Perfect. And as you know, in implementing Ukraine and Moldova will likely change the role that Poland is playing right now for the European Union, since it's well, now it's working as a border crossing between the European Union and the east of the world. How can now Poland's role change with the implementation of Ukraine and Moldova? For example, we hear about more investments needed in Malasevice. How do you think that will play out?
Yeah, it's very difficult to predict how things evolve from here. Of course, the development of Ukraine and Moldova being incorporated into TEN-T, this should increase the infrastructure and subsequently the capacity available on the network in these regions. Also, when we talk about the track gauge, that we will go towards standard gauge throughout Europe, this should improve a number of issues. What's important here, though, it's not just infrastructure. To really improve the connectivity, we need to be looking at a number of issues. For instance, train drivers directive, how do we stop border crossings becoming artificial barriers to movement? So infrastructure is only one part of really increasing those freight volumes, but it is an important part, of course.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there's plan to extend the standard gauge, European gauge, to all over the Union. How do you think that can be implemented? Let's say in an efficient way?
Yeah, this is the big political discussion now. I think if we want to implement it in an efficient way, what we really need from the final legal text is clear deadlines and rules for implementation. If we have quite an ambiguous text or open to interpretation, then we have a situation where different member states interpret what they have to do differently, they interpret timeframes differently, and then we end up with a difficult situation. So if we want a good implementation, we need a clear legal text.
Perfect. And what do you think that including Ukraine and Moldova could bring to the industry, to the rail freight industry?
Again, I think this is somewhere that there is huge potential. We've seen it with the grain shipments already over the past year. This has grown exponentially due to the closing of the ports. So this is one area where there is potential growth for the sector. Let's say going back to 1-2 years ago, cross-border traffic from Ukraine to the European Union was quite small. So there is potential there.
All right. I think it's a very interesting topic to look after, and we will certainly do so in 2023. If you ask our audience what more we should look into, actually, if you ask Dimitri what more we should look into, it's volumes. And this is a very interesting thing, because if you report about volumes, as we all know, there are so many different volumes to compare. Some count the China-Europe traffic, some count the China-Europe traffic excluding Russia, including Russia, some only their own volumes. It's very difficult to measure. And I think it is interesting to do that maybe on a periodic interval. So just every half a year or quarterly year, report all the figures that are out there. But then we need your help. So if you have figures that we don't have, send them in. If you have something to share, please do so. And then we're now reaching the end of our webinar. Before we're going to have a toast, I'm going to take you through the events that we're going to have next year. That is a very interesting agenda. We all know the RailFreight Summit, which takes place in Poland every year. And this time it is in April and not in September. This is new. We moved it back to April, so it's coming very soon, 19th and 20th of April in Warsaw, same city as we held it last year. This is the 6th edition. We have the usual European Silk Road Summit, the one we just held in Duisburg in the end of the year, 6th and 7th December. The location is still unknown, but we're working on that. But the new event of RailFreight is the RailFreight Connect. This is an event that we're going to have on the 6th and 7th of September, and it's about modalities. So it's not just rail, it will be about the ports, about the ocean shipping, about air, and how they all connect. And not only that, we will talk about the technologies of how things are loaded and reloaded. We're talking about what is needed to get there. And also very interestingly will be that it's in partnership with Project Cargo. Project Cargo joins our sister publication. They also have an event on the 6th and 7th of September in the same location. We don't know the location yet, but they will be there too. Those events will be held next to each other at the same time, and the networking of those events will be done together. So the people from Project Cargo Summit will be able to mingle with our audience, and you'll be able to mingle with the Project Cargo world. So it's a whole new thing. Now that is for next year. Before we close off, I promise you a toast. We're all gonna have a drink, and I hope you do too. So if you're sitting at home, please have a glass, fill it with something you like, so we can all toast together. Cheng Fang, you're back.
Thank you.
Marco is trying to pop the bottle.
Yes.
You want to join too?
Look out. Look out.
You can't? Here you go. This is our staff.
Oh.
Our technical staff.
Shall we start with ladies first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Why not? Thank you. This will take us some time to fill all the glasses, but I hope you all have this toast in your room as well. Maybe in the meantime, what's your 2023 wish?
Yeah, I said, I think we need to preserve the transit times which we have today, also for the new year. And for me personally, I would gradually see more express trains coming in to speed up the network and the efficiency of rail. Yeah.
Okay, good wish. What is your New Year's wish for 2023?
Before saying the New Year's wish, there's two more good news to share with you. The first is from 1st of October, e-cars can be ordered by the China Rail on rail. And the second, DB Cargo together with Feighan to launch the 10-day scheduled trains. So that means brings the new hopes for next year. So I hope the Chinese and the European relationship will be more mutual profit and peaceful in next year. So brings the whole logistics industries have a better and better. Yeah.
All right. And Conor, do you have a glass with you? He's already gone. Okay. Well, then we're going to have our toast here. I wish you all a very good 2023, hopefully better than 2022. It was a pleasure to have you there. RailFreight audience, to you as well, and we're hoping to see you and talk to you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.